So we may not see Nintendo Switch 2 this year, but one thing that is for certain is that this console is going to have a lot of games, and not just because Nintendo has officially confirmed backwards compatibility as a supported feature themselves, meaning everything from our Switch library is compatible with the next gen console. Now there's some asterisks with that. They still say that they're going to go into more detail about how that feature works, and I see some people online being worried about the fact that maybe cartridges won't be compatible, only digital software will. That is not a Nintendo move. We will see something very similar to the 3DS, like where you have the ability to pop in the previous gen cartridges, most likely into the same slot, and then you have a different shaped cartridge or some way for the system to register that it is a current gen cartridge. But not talking about necessarily so many of the first party games here, but Nintendo at their most recent financial investor briefing did have a slide where they talked about strengthening their partnership with other publishers out there. And not only are we going to see them actually do this, as there's been some insider talk and reports that this is part of their strategy to continue to support the current family of Switch systems that is out there today after they launch the hardware of the successor to the Nintendo Switch, but we will also no doubt see them do this with more capable hardware like the Switch 2 and bringing a ton of third parties into the fold. And really, if you think about all of the end of PS4, Xbox One era generation games and into ones that we're releasing on PS5, Xbox Series X and S that have just not been able to run on Nintendo hardware, all of the third-party games are now going to be on the table and in the conversation. And with Nintendo's direct focus around this, and even outlining and name-dropping a lot of partners that they look forward to working with closer together in this next generation, I think we have a very exciting situation to talk about with the upcoming console when it comes to overall game support. And I kind of want to take a moment to paint that picture today for what it might look like in terms of some already shoe-in game releases, in my opinion, that we will see supported on Nintendo's next-gen platform. So we'll get on the same page with all of that. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first start off by hopping over to My Nintendo News, where they do have a brief summary of a write-up of kind of what Nintendo is focused on here with their development partners. As you can see, this following article, which reads, Nintendo is in process of strengthening relationships with third-party publishers. One of many things Nintendo is currently focused on ahead of launching their next generation console is strengthening its relationship with third-party publishers and developers. The reason for this is clear, as the more games available, the more likely it is to be a success with consumers. Nintendo also relies on some third-party developers to create video games for their platforms using the company's valuable IPs. With a new console on the horizon, strengthening company ties with publishers and developers is crucial. Now, one of the publishers on the list that we are going to look at, and it's not the only one we're talking about because there's actually a ton of them, but it is none other than Microsoft. And I do actually want to highlight an article that came out a little while back, just kind of highlighting the fact that Microsoft is about to double down on this multi-platform strategy. As you can see, this headline, which reads at Go Nintendo, Microsoft once again pledges more support for Nintendo platforms. In an open letter shared on LinkedIn, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella talked about all that the Xbox division had accomplished this year, and that included their work on the Switch. Nadella spoke proudly of the collaborative efforts and made it clear that everyone can expect more crossovers down the road. Now then, taking a look at the direct slide in detail from Nintendo's latest investor briefing, you can see under this section, which we did go over in a video yesterday, but just kind of highlighting a number of different publishers and developers to maybe pay attention to for content on Nintendo's next gen platform, in addition to, of course, some on the current gen. 505 Games, Atlas, Bandai Namco, Capcom. We already see a ton of support from Capcom, but Monster Hunter Wilds, I think, is a shoe-in on the next-gen platform. Electronic Arts, From Software, which is a big one for me. Missing Souls games, and cannot wait for Elden Ring Definitive Edition. Microsoft, Sega, Ubisoft, Square Enix, and some recent comments from Square Enix indicate that they are ready to go full-on multi-platform. Warner Brothers games, which we've already seen games like Hogwarts Legacy make it to the current Switch, which was quite a undertaking. Konami, Level 5, I mean, so many others that you can see on screen here. It is clearly going to be a big push for Nintendo to strengthen these relationships over the upcoming console generation. And the exciting thing is as Nintendo fans, we will finally have a piece of console hardware that is powerful enough to run many of these games without any issues. And, you know, to talk about and outline some of the no-brainers out there, you think EA, and I immediately think of two of the quality Star Wars games that they put out with Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. I think both of those are shoe-in day one type releases, maybe not right at the launch of the console, but within the first year, maybe even release them together as a definitive pack. a definitive edition of the first 2 games, and then we'll see support for the third one, as I do believe that's currently in development. On the topic of Star Wars, Ubisoft's entry with Star Wars Outlaws, it didn't review the best. I didn't end up playing through it. Definitely seems like maybe if you enjoy stealth type of games and you want to feel like you're in the Star Wars universe, but not in the most meaningful way, like it definitely didn't sell as well as Ubisoft wanted it to, as many games haven't recently. But nonetheless, I do think that that would be another one to bring over, that they would give another shot to sell on a Nintendo platform. And then you talk about Microsoft for a moment, and we already know that Microsoft is going a very multi-platform at this point in time. Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush, back when that was still their own studio. Now they've sold that studio off, but nonetheless, that was like their phase 1 of testing, but they're still going much further than that. The new Indiana Jones game that's coming out towards the end of this year, actually in December on the Xbox, is hitting PlayStation early next year. I think as soon as April, if I'm not mistaken. That's coming to PS5. If they are willing to put a Microsoft first-party published game that is that recent, like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, that absolutely could be in the conversation for Nintendo's next-gen platform as well. Will it look as visually impressive? Maybe not, because that is a current-gen, meaning for the other platforms, current-gen console game, but we have to remember that we're expecting this thing to be at least as powerful in docked mode in terms of raw horsepower, if the leaked specs and shipping document data is to be believed, that this is going to be loosely comparable to the raw horsepower of a Series S console, which Microsoft is still developing for actively at this time, and we also know Nintendo is going to be using additional tools such as DLSS upscaling through their NVIDIA chipset, and it's quite possible that with those tools in mind, modern day games that are just being developed for this current round of consoles will entirely be supported. Microsoft now having the juggernaut franchise of Call of Duty, I wouldn't be surprised if Black Ops 6 makes it onto Nintendo's next-gen platform, and that's probably actively in development right now. That was actually part of the deal of that merger going through, where we know that 10 years of Call of Duty support is coming to Nintendo platforms. We haven't seen any releases yet, so we basically are going to start that 10-year clock once we see the first one released. There's rumors of Halo making a return with the Master Chief Collection out on PlayStation consoles. I think something like that, or even like a Halo 1 remake, all that kind of stuff would be in the conversation for Nintendo as well. Tony Hawk 3+4 maybe coming in some capacity. It's not confirmed yet, but there's a lot of teases going on for Tony Hawk's 25th anniversary that we're supposed to be learning about some kind of new gaming project, and I'm sure we would see support for any future entries in that franchise. I'm hoping Guitar Hero makes a return in the current console generation, and when that happens, it would be an obvious multi-platform thing that's also supported on Nintendo consoles, as I personally miss me some Guitar Hero. Absolutely loved that franchise back in the day. Yeah, I got oversaturated at the end, but such a gem of a experience to have if you played Guitar Hero 1 through 3, and then even World Tour and Rock Band 1 and 2 and 3. Like, I really had fun with all those music rhythm based games. I would love to have them back in some capacity now. And don't get me started on FromSoft, because while we have Dark Souls remastered on Nintendo Switch, we never got 2 or 3, likely just due to that extra development time and hoops you have to jump through to get these games to run smoothly on Nintendo's base hardware. So with FromSoft specifically being named in that slide, well, I actually think that's a direct tease to Elden Ring more than anything else, and we do have that outstanding leak/rumor that Elden Ring will be released around the end of 2025, which, to be fair, now does look more likely for when the console could launch in that fall time window. But I am still hopeful for a first half of 2025 launch, and I do think that something like a Dark Souls 2 and 3 collection, or maybe even just do the trilogy and re-release it, would be the perfect thing to do if you're FromSoft, because you can have all the games running at 60 frames per second across the board and sell all 3 of them together with the DLC like they've re-released for other consoles already, and this would be an easy port to bring over to more powerful hardware to help move some additional units and test the waters a little bit for Bandai Namco and FromSoft on the Nintendo platform, because they're not very well known in terms of the Souls games, that is, on Nintendo platforms other than just Dark Souls 1. And then you follow that up with a big release like Elden Ring, a definitive edition with the DLC and full game, and you're talking about easily 100 plus hours, if not 150 hours of gameplay. I mean, really, you can go further than that in Elden Ring if you just want to do New Game Plus over and over. Like, there is so much content and so much fun to be had in the world of Dark Souls and Elden Ring both. I mean, I can't recommend those games to people enough, and I really think that they are heavily in Nintendo's crosshairs right now in terms of bringing them to their next-gen platform, and that's very exciting to me. And another company similar to Microsoft that we've already seen make direct statements that they're going aggressively multi-platform is Square Enix, and I think that all of the Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, in addition to maybe Final Fantasy 16, and the entire Kingdom Hearts franchise, just like the whole collection being released natively on the next gen console. I think stuff like that is all a shoe-in. So all of that to say, we could keep going down the list of which games we might see released on the next gen console, but I want you guys for a minute to think about what this picture of total playable content looks like when you have your entire Switch 1 collection of games immediately compatible with Switch 2, and then we have all of this brand new third-party support from a library of games that have already been released on the other consoles that Nintendo got skipped over on, and they now have the chance to make their debut on more powerful hardware that Nintendo will release soon. So that's a very exciting world for me. I very much look forward to going through some of these games that I've either put off playing altogether for the first time, or that I have gone through that I'm willing to re-go through on the next gen Nintendo platform. And especially having that flexibility of having any of these games on the go, it's all just obviously a big plus at the end of the day. But let me know in the comments down below, out of all the publishers and developers that we mentioned here, which, if any of their games, would you want to see brought to Nintendo's next gen platform? And are you like me and you think that this statement that Nintendo's made about backwards compatibility just insinuates that both cartridges and digital works? Because I've seen that thrown around online and been debated that maybe Nintendo just means digital purchases. I definitely don't think that's what this is. I think they're doing full on support across the scale, but what do you think? And lastly, while we may not know when we're going to get a first look at this console, if you had to put your money on it, do you think it is a first half 2025 release or a second half 2025 release in terms of Nintendo bringing the console to market? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.